Hello, friend. I am here with another conversation on extraterrestrials. Are you even surprised? Are you sick of me by now? Nonetheless, I want to discuss and hopefully answer a very important question that not only a few of you who have watched my recent videos on ETs have brought forth, but an important question that I have been asking myself a lot recently. So this question is, should we fear extraterrestrials? I'm going to do my best to answer this question. And of course, I would love to know your answers, your thoughts, your experiences in the comment section. So before I really dig into this question, I first want to appease my Capricorn self, my little Capricorn moon, and all the other Capricorn placements I have. And I want to establish a clear definition, a clear structure here so we know where we are collectively, right, with this topic. So, yes, we all know what fear means. We feel it more than anything. But let's see what dictionary.com says about fear. So, dictionary.com defines fear as an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that something or someone is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. So, what really stood out to me here in this definition is the statement that that it's an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief, right? So, what belief is generating this fear, this unpleasant emotion? Where did this belief originate? And honestly, what is really happening, right? What's really happening? Because apparently we've already made contact. Maybe not all of us, maybe not consciously or obviously, but apparently extraterrestrials are already among us. Maybe they're walking around physically, or, I definitely personally believe that they're here energetically. And that is what really brings me back to this question, should we fear ETs? And this is based on my own experience. So in previous videos, I have shared my origin or just my experience with connecting with extraterrestrials, or more so my inspiration and how far that went back. And it went back as far as childhood, beginning with, say, movies like E.T. and then shows like X-Files, but then having my own significant experiences through sleep paralysis, through this random story, or maybe it was multiple stories about being abducted. Who knows? Like, I definitely had a story about that, right? So there has always been an openness to extraterrestrials for myself. There's always been an openness to contact. So what's ironic is that while in my conscious frame of mind, I'm so open and excited to connect with extraterrestrials, to read, to learn, to explore, and even to take this into meditation and into my dream space. But on the flip side, when that presence begins to reveal itself in the physical in some ways, I have fear. There is fear there. So I'll just share two brief experiences that I've had very recently. The first one, so let me back it up and say that this year I have really been moving closer and closer and being very intentional about contact. And it began essentially coming across Bashar. So I have watched Bashar videos years ago, and I've had friends, share clips and stuff of his messages, his channeling, but I don't know, like, they were insightful, they resonated, but I didn't feel really drawn. It wasn't until I learned that Bashar was an extraterrestrial that was being channeled, and all of a sudden I was drawn in, I was magnetized, and I was listening to everything, like all of his videos, anything that I could find, and even, of course, purchasing, renting his other videos, just one thing after the other. But it was the fact that he was an extraterrestrial. And so that opened the door to many other, um, synchronicities and coming across other different resources. And through that, I began to really open myself intentionally to contact. It was very important to me. It is very important to me. So, a recent experience that I had is that I was home by myself, which is very, very rare to be home by myself during twilight. So, pretty much in the evening, home alone. And I had an hour window of time. So, I decided to do a trance meditation because I rarely can do that. So, to keep this very brief, I was laying on the couch in my living room, basically like in the sweet spot of trance before I really was just gone, right? Consciously, I was in that sweet spot of warmth and hovering and just like I could feel my body almost kind of like levitated and just like vibrating with this warmth, this fire. And so I'm in this sweet spot, and all of a sudden I hear the wood floor and kind of like so there's an opening from my living room to the hallway and then the kitchen. And so it was in that little area, which thresholds, if some of you may know that thresholds is a very potent spot for spirits and beings and so forth, because it's that transitional point, at least from my experience. And so I heard that, and I like kind of paused. I felt, my body felt the fear, and that's that sensation in my body, like it's a natural response for myself. And so I just want to share that with you all. If you ever have that experience where your body is naturally in fear, sometimes it's just like your physical body trying to, one, get a read on the what's in the space. And there could be clearly some sort of what's the word, the vibration is not in alignment, it is not resonating, so you feel that dissonance. I think that's the right word. And so that's what happened with me. And so I was a bit alert, and I'm like, okay, something's here, because like I said, I know that feeling, I know that sensation. And it's happened in the past when I opened myself to channel, and again, I had this kind of fear thing come up that I had to navigate. So to keep it short, of course, I laid there and I began to receive telepathic communication. And it was an extraterrestrial. I'm sure it was, because I've had so many synchronicities after that. But the important thing was that I want to share from this is that I felt that fear, and this being really guided me through the fear. And honestly, I told like I because I could see it also, and I could see that it looked like an extraterrestrial, like an ET, and at least my perception of it. And it wanted to come into the living room, and I basically said no, but it came anyways. So, and I know it's because on a deeper level, I had already been calling in this, right? And so it sat down in the living room in the chair across from the couch, and we had a conversation, and it shared with me some things that it guided me to do some stuff, like start drawing sacred geometry, sacred shapes again, as it's going to unlock deeper insight in whatever is necessary for me to know at this time. And let me say that I finally acted on that, and things have been happening, right? So there was that deep fear there. And this being counseled me and consoled me essentially through that fear. And I'm so glad that I moved through it, because I was able to gain that guidance, and I also implemented it, and so much has happened. And so that was probably like, actually, that was last month, right? So that was almost a month ago. So here we are. And a few days ago, I I bought this book, actually, called The Prism of Lyra. I bought this book like a couple weeks ago. Maybe I received it like 2 weeks ago. Finally read it, and I decided, as I began to read it and I was reading it in bed, I decided to put it under my pillow to see what comes through, like see what happens in the dream space. And so, to keep that very short, I had this dream, right? A dream, but I was in my bedroom, but it wasn't my bedroom, but I was laying down, and something was happening to my body. And they were there, and it was like it was already happening, and then I came to conscious awareness of it. not like waking up from the dream, but conscious awareness in that setting. And I started freaking out. I was like, we're done. Stop what you're doing. This is not cool. Like, let's be done with it. And like, I was yelling at them, like ready to fight. And honestly, I was sharing this with a friend, and I'm even sharing it with you now. And I'm so embarrassed, like, to them, because I'm just like, wow, literally, Urania, you've been asking for this, you've been wanting contact, and you just freak out. So finally, I do wake up in waking life, and it's still kind of fuzzy too, right? Where I'm like, was I actually awake? But I was, and I like was laying there in my bed, and I was freaking out a little bit. And then, funny, I'm seeing a little light, and I'm like, ooh, what's that? So I was freaking out a little bit in bed, just like, what was that? And I was just very like vigilant and alert, like my fight or flight was there. And I'm pretty sure I woke up with, no, I didn't wake up with anxiety that time. But anyway, I heard again a little creak, and I'm like, my body responded. I'm like, okay, they're here. Whoever's here, they're here. And so then I kind of also, like, I just laid there, and my cat was on the bed. My cat heard it too. And she, stood up because she was laying down, and she just like sat there. And then we heard something by the closet of the bedroom. So we're both looking at the closet, then we're looking at the window. And it was really interesting. But nonetheless, I wanted to share that. And I've had other instances too recently where I know they're present. My body knows they're present. And despite my curiosity, my eagerness, my excitement, I feel fear. And I'm ready to put my head under the covers and say, go, and I'm working myself through that. So this is something also, if you're experiencing this in any aspect of your life, right? You find yourself in fear of what is exciting to you, what you're curious about, but then you push it away because, it's uncertain, it's unknown, it's scary. And it could be a threat to your survival or anything. You don't really know yet. And so it's natural to have that fear and to push it away. And so that's why I've been asking myself, I'm like, should we be fearing ETs? Like, why am I fearing ETs when I'm just so excited and eager to learn and to share and to connect? So coming back to my earlier point, is that there is a belief here that is generating this emotional response of fear, especially in my, like I said, in my special case where, I mean, why am I fearing? If this is what I want, if I'm really excited, what's happening here? So there's definitely has to be something happening on a deeper unconscious level that generates this fear. So I did have someone directly message me about, or just expressing their just appreciation that I am sharing about extraterrestrials in this specific light, like in a positive light. And they shared with me that they have had, there's been a little bit of fear around it. And so, I asked if they felt comfortable sharing why. And simply, I mean, they didn't necessarily have a direct answer, except the fact that in media, extraterrestrials, aliens have been portrayed as something dangerous, as a threat. And it made complete sense to me. And in my own research, like recently after that, I was looking into the astronomy perspective of what 3-eye atlas, the comet, the perceived comet, like what is going on with that, what's the astronomy around that, what are they saying? Because I already know what the spiritual community is saying, so I like to keep it balanced here, and I like to look at the science and then tune into my intuition and what's coming through. And when I found a scientific paper that it wasn't peer reviewed, and this author is known to entertain, some, kind of not necessarily out there perspectives, but it's to pique curiosity and to consider, the different perspectives. And so his perspective, or his paper, was on, what if 3-eye atlas is an extraterrestrial like technology? And so he gave his reasoning on why this perspective is valuable. And there it was, like the first or second reason, there was only three. So it was in the top three, was that this could be dire for humanity. And I'm like, really? That's an interesting perspective, at least the intensity of it. I'm like, dire? That there's a lot of energy. There's a lot that's like emotionally charged there. And so, and that was very shortly after this person reached out to me about their, curiosity and their perspective. And so I don't know what it is. In future videos, I will share a little bit more about this fear or where the root of this could be, because there are many different perspectives of why we humans may fear extraterrestrials. I mean, it's very clear that it's unknown, right? We don't know who they are, what their intention actually is. Like, there hasn't been any contact, although I'm going to argue, of course, there has been contact through different channels, through people having, sightings and whatnot. But when we're thinking on from the 3D perspective, the quote unquote, you could say mundane, practical perspective, they don't view that as actual contact, right? And it makes sense as like a spiritual person that contact would happen more through channeling than through them being here in a physical way or sending like radio signals like that. Just, okay, you're going to send the radio signals, and that's, in their eyes, that's probably kind of primitive, right? If we think about our history of the gods being in the sky or coming down from the sky, and there's reverence and respect, and there's in some way, in some perspectives, there's fear as well. Like, we want to appease them, we want to, you know, have reverence. So there are many reasons. And I think when it comes to what is really happening, in my experience, is that I feel that the fear, it's a little bit of everything, but at its most basic level, that fear in my body is essentially the response of the difference in the vibrational frequency of this being and myself. And so Bashar has talked about this a few times or several times, because people, ask like, why don't they present themselves to us? Or, I want to meet them in person. Can we meet you in person? And his response is that the frequency is just so different. Their vibrational frequency is very high, to the point closer to spirit than to physical. And when we feel that frequency of whatever they hold that's closer to spirit, it almost feels like we're dying, because he says, in a way, when we die, we're going back into spirit, right? So it's like, when we're in the energy field of a higher dimensional being that has a very high frequency, it's like we're losing our identity. It feels like we're losing our identity, we're losing our physical self, and so forth. And that has this survival, like, fight or flight response. And then there is the emotional response, right? Because we have the belief about what is even coming up in the body, right? So it's like, I already feel fear because there's this deeper belief that I've been conditioned to feel fear, and I feel it in my body. Even if I process it in my mind, it's like, no, like, we're good, this is my guide. My body's like, I don't know, I feel that energy, I feel that frequency, it's not in alignment. And so then we have that experience of the physical fear in the body. And then we have the belief, as we're feeling that, we're having the belief of like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. Am I dying? Is something going to hurt me? Like, something's off. I can't breathe. My heart is racing. And then we're in our head about what that means. We already have a definition. And so with that definition, it drives that belief and that emotion. And so a way to navigate this energy essentially is to really go deeper with your beliefs, go deeper with your definition. And this is why I even started this conversation, this video, with defining what is fear, right? So when we bring attention and illumination to our definitions, then we can get a little bit more clear of the root of things, right? And then we can change that if we desire. If it's not in alignment, if it's something that we don't, prefer, something that we don't want to choose, then we have the moment, or we have the awareness to choose something differently, to define it in a different way. And so that's something that I'm working on, is to be able to define this in a different way. And even sharing this here in this video is actually helping me a lot, because I'm thinking about, simply it's a separation in frequency. And of course, just as there are benevolent beings, there are, malevolent beings, right? And so I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to bypass that. But the key is here is knowing yourself. And when you know yourself, when you are in the frequency of, even just with the courage, with the knowing yourself, and also taking proper precautions with shielding yourself, you are then able to read the room even better. So if there's an energy in your space, you're like, I know exactly what that is, and that is not here for my benefit. Boom, right? And you can take the proper precautions of, commanding that being to leave, also clearing your space, protecting your space. So once you even raise your baseline frequency, then you won't even come into contact with those more malevolent type energies. And again, if you do, you will call it out. You will see it for what it is pretty much instantaneously, and you'll know what to do. Right. And so another point to consider as well is that another belief or generative experience of that brings forth fear, the emotion of fear, the emotional response, is the unknown, right? So if we don't know who it is that we're connecting with, if we don't know their intentions, of course we're going to feel fear. And if you don't know yourself and your own intentions and your own power, then of course you're going to feel fear. So when it comes to anything, not just connecting with extraterrestrials, but when it comes to, mastering your spiritual gifts or remembering your spiritual gifts, or even, starting a new job or a new relationship, it's important to know yourself, to know your intention and your own power, because in that knowing, you are more confident, you are more able to read the energy of the being, of the environment, and you're able to move accordingly, take the necessary actions and precautions and so forth. And with that energy, with that intention within yourself, you will be in a space of fearlessness, right? Or it's not going to overtake you. So that's where I'm at with this specific question of should we fear extraterrestrials. So again, that's not a yes or no question. That's a personal question for each and every one of us. Personally, I don't think that we should fear extraterrestrials, even the quote unquote bad ones, or the ones that don't do things in our best interests. I don't think we should even fear them, because one, we have our own spiritual power and we have backup. We are divinely protected. Do you feel that? Do you know that? The knowing is the most powerful point, right? The knowing, again, knowing yourself, knowing your power, knowing that you're divinely protected. That is everything. And so I personally don't feel that we should fear extraterrestrials. And this is why, now I'm even understanding even more. This is why I'm being guided to do these videos and talk about it, because open contact is happening. If you're watching this video, it's definitely going to happen in your reality. And so we should start talking about it. We should start taking precautions. We should start really learning and reaching out, because I have so much to share. So again, I'm going to leave it here. I would love to know your thoughts. And I also want to say, stay tuned, as I'm going to be doing a live here on YouTube on December 21st. So the solstice, I'll be here with my friend Jackie, who we're going to get to that. But Jackie is amazing. And she is the one that really fully activated this whole thing for me recently. And it just like opened the floodgates. So we're going to be doing a live, and we're going to start talking about star seeds And we're going to share on this very important topic of like our origin point. And I know so many of you are likely not feeling like you belong here, like you belong on this planet with everything happening that's crazy. I totally understand that. And recently, I mean, with my studies recently, I have really been feeling more and more and more and more connected to Earth. Like I'm at this moment, I am so proud and excited to be a human being. And so we're going to share with you about this. So save the date, December 21st, 11 a.m. Eastern time is when we're going to go live. Alrighty, so I will see you very soon with another video before then. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please like the video if you enjoy this. And of course, leave your thoughts and your answers in the comment section. Take care.